Welcome to Starbound Valor HFY. Subscribe now and dive into daily epic sci-fi adventures where humanity always rises. The alien research ship Kalzar moved slowly through the dark clouds of the Deathworld. Every system on board screamed warnings. The gravity was too strong. The air was full of poison. The storms below could tear steel apart. No known species could survive on a planet like this. That was why the signal made no sense. Deep inside the storm-covered surface, their scanners had detected a Class-15 spacecraft. Such ships were only used by advanced spacefaring races. And according to Galactic records, the ship was human. Humans were supposed to be gone, lost to history, declared extinct after the old wars. Yet the signal was real, steady, and recent. Captain Rethak stood silent on the bridge, his eyes fixed on the glowing display. His crew waited, afraid to speak. This planet was forbidden space. A death world marked with red warnings across every star map. No rescue would come if something went wrong. Still, the ship had come. Curiosity was stronger than fear. Rethak finally gave the order to descend. The engines roared as the ship pushed through the violent clouds, lightning striking the hull again and again. The ship shook, but it held. They landed in a broken valley surrounded by black stone and twisted metal. The ground was cracked, as if the planet itself was angry. Acid rain fell in slow drops, burning small holes into the soil. The air smelled sharp and heavy. Sensors showed life signs everywhere, most of them hostile. Yet the human ship stood there, half-buried, silent, and strangely intact. Its hull was scarred, but not destroyed. Time and storms should have crushed it long ago. The away team stepped out in full armor. Each step felt heavy under the strong gravity. Their suits warned them again and again that survival time was limited. They moved toward the ship carefully, weapons ready. No one spoke. The silence felt wrong. Death worlds were loud, full of screaming winds and hunting beasts. This place felt like it was watching them. The human ship was massive, older than most known designs, yet strong. Its markings were worn but clear. Human symbols. Human writing. Proof that humans had been here. Recently, one of the scientists scanned the hull and froze. The metal showed signs of repair, not decay. Someone had fixed this ship. Someone alive. Captain Rethak ordered the team inside. The main hatch opened with effort, metal grinding against metal. Inside, the air was thin but breathable. Emergency lights flickered on, reacting to the presence of the aliens. Power still flowed through the ship. That alone broke every law of known science. The crew moved through dark corridors, finding signs of life everywhere. Tools were arranged with care. Food containers were empty but clean. Walls showed scratches, marks made by claws or blades. Something had attacked this ship. Something dangerous. In the command room, they found a log terminal. The language was human, but the system translated it. The last entry was not old. It was only weeks ago. The message was short and calm. We are still here. This world tests us. It makes us stronger. The room stayed silent after the translation ended. The idea was impossible. No species chose a death world. No one lived here by choice. As they prepared to leave, one of the soldiers noticed something outside. Marks in the soil. Footprints. Not alien. Not animal. Human. Fresh. Heavy. Pressed deep into the ground, shaped by strong bones and muscle. These were not the weak humans described in old records. These prints belonged to something adapted to this world. The wind howled suddenly, louder than before. The ground vibrated under their feet. Sensors picked up movement all around them. Large shapes moved beyond the rocks, fast and silent. Predators. Many of them. The aliens raised their weapons, fear spreading through the team. Then the movement stopped. The shapes pulled back, as if obeying an unseen command. A voice echoed through the valley, calm and clear, speaking in perfect galactic common. You should not be here. The team turned in shock. A human figure stood on a high ridge, watching them. The human wore simple armor made from local materials. Scars covered their exposed skin. Their eyes showed no fear, only control. More humans appeared beside them, silent and ready. Captain Rethak understood then. Humanity was not extinct. Humanity had changed. This Deathworld had not killed them. It had forged them. And by coming here, the galaxy had found them again. The alien team retreated slowly toward their ship, but the humans did not attack. They watched in silence as the Kalzar lifted off the ground and vanished into the dark clouds. Inside the alien ship, fear and confusion filled the air. No one spoke for a long time. Every rule they knew had been broken. Humans were alive. Humans lived on a death world. And worse, they ruled it. Captain Rethak ordered the ship to move into high orbit, far from the surface. He needed answers, and fear would not give them. From orbit, the crew began a deep scan of the planet. The data shocked even the oldest scientists. Gravity was almost twice the galactic standard. Radiation storms passed across the surface every few hours. The atmosphere carried toxic gases mixed with corrosive rain. Temperatures shifted from extreme heat to freezing cold in a single-day cycle. This world was designed to kill. No known species could survive here for more than a few hours without full protection. Yet the scans showed signs of long-term human presence across the planet. Shelters, power sources, movement patterns. Humanity was everywhere. The scientists focused on the areas near the human ship. They discovered small structures hidden inside rocks and underground caves. These were not advanced buildings made of shining metal. They were simple, strong, and smart. Thick stone walls. Narrow entrances. Traps placed along natural paths. Humans had not tried to change the planet. They had learned to live with it. Every structure showed signs of repair and use. This was not a crash site. This was a settlement. Medical scans of human remains left behind shocked the crew even more. Bones were denser than standard human records. Muscle fibers were thicker and stronger. Lung capacity had increased. Even the heart showed signs of adaptation. These humans were not the same species described in old galactic files. The death world had reshaped them. Pain, pressure, and danger had forced their bodies to evolve faster than expected. What should have killed them had made them stronger. Captain Rethak reviewed old records of humanity. Humans were once considered weak but clever. They survived through teamwork and stubborn will, not strength. Many species feared their creativity and refused to trust them. During the old conflicts, humans were pushed away from the core systems, forced into distant space. No one expected them to survive long. Yet here they were, not only alive but improved. The galaxy had underestimated them. Suddenly, alarms echoed through the bridge. A massive storm formed on the planet below, faster than any model predicted. Energy readings spiked across the surface. The scientists panicked, sure that the human settlements would be destroyed. But the scans showed something else. Humans moved calmly. Power shields activated. Structures locked down. They had prepared for this. This was normal for them. The storm passed, tearing apart the land, yet human signals remained steady. Not a single settlement failed. One scientist whispered the truth no one wanted to say. This planet protects them. The idea sounded insane, but the data supported it. The death world destroyed outsiders but trained its humans. Predators avoided human territory. Storm paths shifted around major settlements. Even seismic activity showed strange patterns. It was as if the planet itself had accepted humanity as part of it. Captain Rethak ordered a passive communication scan. He did not want to alert the humans again. What they found sent a chill through the entire ship. Human signals were not hidden. They were open. Organized. Messages passed between settlements, sharing resources and warnings. No fear. No panic. These humans were united. Stronger together. The crew discovered a repeating human broadcast, sent into deep space but on narrow frequencies. It was not a call for help. It was a warning. The message repeated in simple words. This world is ours. Do not come unprepared. The message had been active for years. The galaxy had ignored it, assuming it was old debris or broken signals. That mistake now felt deadly. As the Kalzar drifted in orbit, Captain Rethak realized the truth. The humans had not been hiding. They had been waiting. Waiting for the galaxy to notice them again. Waiting for someone to come and see what they had become. This Deathworld was no prison. It was a forge. And humanity was no longer weak. By surviving where no one else could, they had changed the balance of power forever. From high orbit, the alien scientists continued their study of the Deathworld, but now their focus had changed. They were no longer asking how humans survived here. They were asking how humans had adapted so completely. Every scan brought new proof. Human movement patterns matched storm cycles. Their settlements were built along fault lines that released pressure safely. Even their daily routines followed the rise and fall of the planet's dangers. Humanity had learned the rhythm of death and turned it into order. Captain Rethak ordered a closer biological scan using long-range medical sensors. The results arrived slowly, but each one carried weight. Human bodies showed clear signs of forced adaptation. Muscles were not just stronger, they were more efficient. Bones had grown thicker without losing flexibility. Skin layers showed resistance to radiation and heat. The lungs filtered toxic air better than expected. These were not changes from technology alone. These were changes earned through generations of survival. One scientist compared old human data with the new readings. The difference was shocking. The humans of the past would have died here within hours. These humans walked the surface freely. They ran through storms. They hunted predators that could tear armored vehicles apart. Fear was no longer their main response. Calm focus had replaced it. The Deathworld had punished every mistake, and humanity had learned fast or died. The ones who lived were the ones who adapted. The alien crew noticed something else. Human technology was simple, almost primitive compared to galactic standards. No shining towers. No floating cities. Their tools were rough but reliable. Weapons used solid parts instead of fragile energy systems. Power came from local sources, not distant supply lines. Humans had built technology that could break, be fixed, and keep working. They had removed weakness from their designs, just as the planet had removed weakness from them. Captain Rethak studied the surface images in silence. He saw humans training in heavy gravity, running with weighted armor, climbing sharp stone under acid rain. Even their children trained early, learning balance, strength, and awareness. This was not cruelty. This was preparation. Every human learned that survival was earned, not given. The Deathworld had become their teacher. The crew intercepted another human message, shared between settlements. It was not military. It was personal. A human voice spoke calmly about losing a friend during a hunt, then ended with a simple lesson. The world is harsh, but it is fair. Respect it, and it lets you live. The message disturbed the aliens more than any weapon display. Humanity did not hate this world. They understood it. Suddenly, the sensors picked up movement far beyond the main settlements. Something massive was traveling across the surface. The data showed a creature of extreme size and strength, one that could destroy cities. The alien crew panicked, assuming a disaster was coming. But the human response was calm. Several groups moved into position, guiding the creature away from settlements using sound, terrain, and controlled force. They did not try to kill it. They controlled it. The scientists realized the truth. Humans did not fight the Deathworld blindly. They studied it. They learned its rules. Predators were not enemies but forces to manage. Storms were not disasters but events to prepare for. Even death was accepted as a lesson. This mindset had changed humanity more than any physical adaptation. Their minds had hardened. Fear no longer ruled them. Captain Rethak reviewed ancient galactic warnings about humans. Long ago, some species had called them dangerous, not because of strength, but because they refused to surrender. At the time, the warnings were ignored. Humans were pushed away, labeled weak, and forgotten. Now those old warnings felt painfully accurate. Humanity had taken exile and turned it into evolution. As the ship drifted silently, the crew understood the deeper danger. These humans were not angry. They were not seeking revenge. They were simply ready. Ready to return. Ready to face the galaxy that had left them behind. The Deathworld had stripped away fear, weakness, and doubt. What remained was something stronger than any weapon. Humanity had adapted, and in doing so, they had become unstoppable. The alien ship remained in orbit, but the feeling of being watched never left. Captain Rethak could sense it even without data. The Deathworld below was quiet in a way that felt controlled, not empty. Long-range sensors showed normal activity, yet the crew felt tension growing with every passing moment. Humans knew they were there. The question was not if the humans would respond, but when. Rethak ordered a controlled descent, not to the main settlement but to a neutral zone far from human territory. The decision was risky, but waiting in orbit felt worse. The Kalzar descended slowly through thick clouds, engines low and silent. The planet welcomed them with violent winds and shaking ground, as if testing their resolve. When they landed, the storm eased slightly, just enough to allow survival. That alone made the crew uneasy. The away team stepped onto the surface once again. This time, they did not move as explorers. They moved as guests who were unsure if they were welcome. The ground was rough, sharp stone cutting through the soil. Strange plants reacted to their presence, folding inward like living traps. Every sound echoed too far. The team followed a narrow path that looked natural, but sensors showed it had been cleared long ago. Humans had walked here many times. As they moved deeper into the valley, the feeling of being watched grew stronger. Motion sensors flickered, then went dark. Communications crackled with static. The Deathworld interfered with everything, but this interference felt guided. The team stopped when a single sound broke the wind. Footsteps. Slow, heavy, confident. A human stepped into view from behind a rock wall. He wore simple armor made from layered metal and hardened skin. No advanced weapons were visible, yet his posture showed complete control. His face was marked with scars, not hidden, not feared. Behind him, more humans appeared, spreading out silently. They did not aim weapons. They did not rush. They simply stood there, watching. Captain Rethak stepped forward and lowered his weapon. The rest of the team followed. Silence stretched between them. The human leader studied the aliens carefully, his eyes sharp and calm. When he spoke, his voice was steady and clear. "You came without permission," he said. That was dangerous. There was no anger in his tone, only truth. Rethak responded slowly, choosing his words with care. He explained that they were explorers, not soldiers. That they followed a signal and found something impossible. He admitted fear. He admitted ignorance. The human listened without interrupting. When Rethak finished, the human nodded once. "The galaxy always underestimates danger," he replied. "That is why it sends others to die first." The human introduced himself simply, without rank or title. He explained that this planet was not a prison or a hiding place. It was home. Humans had come here after being pushed away, not knowing if they would survive. Most did not. Those who lived learned fast. They learned to listen to the world instead of fighting it. The Deathworld punished mistakes, but it rewarded respect. As they spoke, a low growl echoed from the cliffs. A massive predator emerged, its body covered in armored plates, eyes burning with hunger. The alien soldiers raised their weapons in panic, but the humans did not move. The human leader raised one hand. The predator stopped. It snarled, scratched the ground, then slowly backed away into the shadows. The aliens stared in shock. Rethak asked how such control was possible. The human answered simply, "We learned its limits. It learned ours." There was no pride in his voice, only acceptance. To humans, dominance did not mean destruction. It meant balance. The human leader warned them that other species had once tried to land here. None had survived long. Not because humans killed them, but because the world did. Outsiders did not understand the rules. They rushed. They relied on fragile systems. The Deathworld broke them quickly. Humans stayed because they adapted. As the meeting ended, the human stepped closer to Rethak. His eyes held no threat, yet the pressure was overwhelming. "You should leave," he said. "Not because we fear you, but because others will come after you. And not all of them will want peace." Before the aliens could respond, the wind rose again, strong and sudden. The humans faded back into the terrain, disappearing as if the planet itself had swallowed them. Within seconds, the valley was empty. Only silence remained. Back aboard the Kalzar, the crew processed what they had seen. First contact had already happened, but it was not what anyone expected. Humanity was not hiding in ruins or begging for help. They were standing in the open, calm and ready. Captain Rethak recorded his report with a heavy heart. The galaxy needed to know the truth. Humans had not survived the Deathworld by chance. They had mastered it. And anyone who came here unprepared would not meet angry humans. They would meet a world that had chosen its champions. The warning from the human leader stayed with Captain Rethak long after the Kalzar returned to orbit. The words were calm, not threatening, and that made them more dangerous. Humans were not trying to scare the galaxy away. They were stating a fact. This world belonged to them now, not by claim or law, but by survival. Rethak understood that reporting this truth would change everything. The crew began preparing a full data package for the Galactic Council. Every scan, every biological reading, every recorded word was reviewed again and again. The more they studied the evidence, the clearer the pattern became. Humans had not chosen this Deathworld by accident. They had adapted to it with purpose. They had turned pressure into strength and danger into routine. This was not desperation. This was design. Rethak studied the human settlements from orbit once more. He noticed something he had missed before. Their locations formed patterns, not random survival points. Humans had spread across the planet in a way that controlled resources, weather impact, and predator movement. They were shaping the world slowly, carefully, without breaking it. Instead of conquering the planet, they were partnering with it. This approach was unheard of in galactic expansion. One of the scientists raised a disturbing question. Why choose a Deathworld at all? Humanity had access to safer planets before the exile. The answer emerged from human communications intercepted earlier. Humans believed comfort weakened the mind. They believed safety slowed progress. On this world, every mistake cost lives. Every success earned survival. Humanity had chosen constant challenge over slow decay. The crew reviewed old galactic decisions regarding humans. Long ago, humans were seen as unpredictable, too emotional, too stubborn. Other species feared what humans might become if given time and freedom. So they were pushed to the edges of space, expected to fade away. That fear had been correct, but the response had been wrong. Instead of disappearing, humanity had grown sharper, harder, more united. A new human transmission reached the Kalzar. This one was not hidden. It was sent directly to the alien ship. The message was short. You have seen enough. Leave with knowledge, not fear. There was no demand, no threat. Just confidence. Humans did not need to chase the aliens away. The Deathworld would do that if needed. Captain Rethak authorized a response. He thanked the humans for restraint and honesty. He promised to deliver their warning to the galaxy. For a long moment, there was no reply. Then a final message arrived. The galaxy will decide what it learns. We will decide how we respond. The meaning was clear. Humanity would not beg for acceptance. As the Kalzar prepared to jump to hyperspace, long-range sensors detected unknown ships entering the system. Their designs were aggressive, armed, and clearly not explorers. Pirate fleets or private militaries, drawn by rumors of lost technology. The crew felt fear rise again. These ships would not listen. They would land. And they would die. From orbit, Rethak watched as the hostile ships descended toward the planet. Storm systems shifted. Predator movement changed. The Deathworld reacted like a living defense system. Human settlements did not move to intercept. They did not need to. One by one, the hostile ships lost control, torn apart by storms or crushed by gravity. Survivors who reached the surface sent frantic distress calls that quickly went silent. Rethak realized the full truth then. Humans were not the first line of defense. The planet was. Humanity had bonded with a world that rejected all others. Any attack would be broken before it reached them. The Deathworld was their shield, their weapon, and their home. With a heavy sense of responsibility, the Khalzar jumped away. Captain Rethak knew his report would be met with disbelief, fear, and debate. Some would call for isolation. Others would plan conquest. Both choices were dangerous. Humanity did not need to invade the galaxy. They only needed to survive, and they had mastered that art better than any species before them. As the stars stretched into hyperspace, Rethak recorded his final thought. Humanity did not change because they lived on a Deathworld. They chose the Deathworld because they wanted to change. And now, the galaxy would have to face the result of that choice. The first hostile ships never reported back, and that silence echoed across the system. Captain Rethak monitored the sensor logs long after the Khalzar had reached a safe distance. The data confirmed what he feared. The Deathworld had destroyed the intruders without mercy, and human settlements had remained untouched. The planet reacted faster than any artificial defense grid. Humanity did not need fleets in orbit. Their strength was rooted in the ground itself. News of the lost ships spread quickly through nearby systems. Some believed the reports were false, exaggerated by fear. Others saw opportunity, convinced that advanced human technology was hidden on the surface. A second group of ships arrived, larger and better armed. Unlike the first, they prepared for battle. Shields were reinforced. Weapons charged. They believed power could overcome nature. From orbit, alien observers watched as the second group descended. The moment they entered the atmosphere, the world answered. Storms rose without warning. Winds twisted into violent spirals. Gravity fluctuations pulled ships off course. Human signals remained calm and steady, moving deeper underground. They did not rush to fight. They trusted the world they knew. One ship managed to land near a human settlement. Its crew deployed heavy weapons, cutting through rock and soil. The ground trembled as something massive moved beneath them. From the depths emerged the true rulers of the Deathworld. Creatures older than human presence, shaped by the planet itself. Their bodies were armored like living fortresses. Their strength broke machines with ease. The attackers panicked. Their weapons barely slowed the creatures. Humans did not watch from safety. They moved with purpose, guiding the chaos. Small human teams appeared, using sound signals and light markers to control the creatures' movement. They did not fight alongside the beasts. They directed them. Years of study and loss had taught humans how to influence these monsters without challenging them directly. This was not domination. It was cooperation. The battle ended quickly. The hostile force was crushed, scattered across the valley. Survivors fled toward their ships, only to be caught in sudden seismic shifts that swallowed metal whole. When silence returned, human teams moved in to secure the area. They destroyed dangerous debris and treated the injured creatures, ensuring balance returned. The aliens watching from orbit felt a chill. Humans were caretakers of terror. Captain Rethak received fragments of distress signals from the attackers. The messages were full of fear and disbelief. They spoke of a world that fought back, of humans who did not panic, of creatures that obeyed silent commands. No message accused humans of cruelty. The planet itself was blamed. Human communications followed the battle, shared openly between settlements. Losses were acknowledged. Lessons were recorded. Adjustments were planned. There was no celebration. Survival was routine, not victory. This mindset disturbed the alien observers more than any display of strength. Rethak understood now why the human leader had warned him. Others would come, driven by greed or fear. They would all fail. Humanity had become something the galaxy had never seen. A species perfectly matched to its environment, not through technology alone, but through understanding. The Deathworld was no longer just dangerous. It was loyal. As the last hostile ship escaped the system, damaged and terrified, a human broadcast followed it into deep space. The message was calm and clear. This world is not a prize. It is a test. Those who come unprepared will not leave. The words carried no anger, only certainty. Captain Rethak ended his observation with a final note. Humanity did not rule the Deathworld by force. They ruled it by respect. And any power built on respect, not fear, would endure far longer than any empire. The galaxy did not listen at first. Fear spread faster than wisdom, and fear always demanded proof. More ships began to move toward the Deathworld, not as pirates this time, but as military observers and private fleets. They wanted to test the humans. They wanted to see if the stories were true. Captain Rethak watched from a distant system, unable to interfere, knowing that every new arrival would face the same fate. The first organized fleet entered the system with caution. They stayed in high orbit, launching drones instead of landing troops. The drones were advanced, built to survive harsh worlds. As they descended, the Deathworld reacted again. Storms formed with strange precision, striking drones but leaving human zones untouched. Some drones were pulled into the ground by sudden gravity shifts. Others were destroyed by creatures that rose from hidden layers of the planet. Very few returned data, and what they sent back was filled with errors and panic signals. The fleet commanders grew frustrated. They decided to force a landing near a human settlement, believing direct contact would reveal weakness. Several ships broke formation and descended together, shields at full power. Humans responded at once, but not with ships or missiles. Human ground teams moved into position, small and fast, blending into the terrain. They carried simple weapons and tools, not heavy armor. Their strength was in movement and timing. As the alien troops landed, the ground beneath them shifted. Trenches opened where none had been before. Rock walls collapsed in controlled ways, separating enemy units. Human traps activated, using gravity, pressure, and sound to confuse and slow the attackers. The Deathworld amplified every mistake. Alien weapons overheated. Energy shields failed under constant stress. Panic spread quickly. Humans appeared from the dust and storm, striking with precision. They did not waste motion. They did not rush. Each action had a purpose. Small teams disabled power systems, cut supply lines, and forced enemy troops into areas where the planet itself would finish the fight. Human communication was short and clear, shared through secure channels adapted to the world's interference. Every human knew their role. Alien soldiers fought hard, but they were not prepared for this kind of battle. They were trained for clean worlds and predictable enemies. Here, nothing was clean or predictable. Creatures emerged from the ground, drawn by sound and vibration. Humans guided these creatures away from their own teams and toward the invaders. The planet became a maze of moving threats. One alien commander attempted to regroup and call for orbital support. Before the signal could complete, a sudden electromagnetic surge shut down communications. The surge did not affect human systems. They had learned long ago how to work without constant signals. Humans fought with eyes, gestures, and trust built over years of shared danger. The battle ended faster than expected. Surviving alien forces surrendered, dropping weapons and signaling retreat. Humans allowed them to leave. No pursuit followed. No punishment was given. The message was clear. The Deathworld was not a battlefield to conquer. It was a boundary. From orbit, the observing fleets recorded everything. They saw humans fight not with rage, but with calm focus. They saw a species that did not rely on overwhelming force, but on adaptation and unity. Losses were minimal on the human side. The Deathworld protected those who belonged to it. Captain Rethak received updated reports from across the galaxy. The tone had changed. Fear remained, but now it was mixed with respect. Humanity was no longer seen as lost or weak. They were recognized as something rare. A species shaped by hardship into precision. People who turned survival into skill. Human broadcasts followed the retreating fleets, sent openly and without threat. "We do not seek war," the message said. "We will defend what we have built." The simplicity of the words carried more weight than any threat. As the system grew quiet again, humans returned to their routines. Repairs were made. Training continued. Lessons were shared. The battle was recorded, not as a victory, but as information. The Deathworld rested, storms calming, creatures returning to their paths. Far away, Captain Rethak closed his report with a final observation. When humans fought what the galaxy feared, they did not become monsters. They became guardians. And that made them more powerful than anyone had expected. After the battles, silence returned to the Deathworld, but it was not the silence of peace. It was the silence of preparation. Human settlements continued their routines, yet every action carried new purpose. Training sessions grew longer. Communication drills became sharper. Humanity understood that the galaxy was finally paying attention. The time of hiding, even on a Deathworld, was ending. Human leaders gathered from different regions of the planet. They met in a deep underground chamber carved from solid stone, safe from storms and scans. No banners were raised. No titles were spoken. Leadership among humans was earned through trust and survival, not rank. They spoke openly about the future, about what the galaxy now believed, and about the truths that had been hidden for generations. One elder shared records from the early days of exile. Humans had been driven from safe systems after being labeled unstable and dangerous. Their creativity and refusal to submit had frightened older species. Instead of fighting a losing war, humanity chose distance. They traveled until they found a world no one wanted. A world that promised either death or change. They chose it knowing many would not survive. The first years were nearly the end of humanity. Storms destroyed shelters. Creatures hunted relentlessly. Entire groups were lost. But humans learned. They stopped fighting the world and began learning from it. They watched how predators moved. They studied how storms formed. They adapted their bodies, tools, and minds. Slowly, survival became possible. Then it became normal. A younger leader spoke of what the galaxy never understood. Humans did not grow strong because they loved violence. They grew strong because they refused to surrender. The Deathworld forced every human to face fear daily. Over time, fear became a signal, not a weakness. Pain became information. Loss became memory. Humanity evolved not just in body, but in thought. The leaders agreed on one truth. The galaxy feared what it did not understand. If humans returned without explanation, war would follow. But if they remained silent, others would continue to test them. The Deathworld could protect humanity for now, but isolation was no longer enough. Humanity needed to speak, not as victims, but as equals. A decision was made to send a controlled message to the Galactic Council. Not a threat. Not a plea. A history. Humans would explain why they left, how they survived, and what they had become. They would not hide the Deathworld's danger. They would not exaggerate their strength. Truth would be their shield. The message was prepared carefully, using simple words and clear meaning. It showed images of early losses, of adaptation, of unity. It showed children training, elders teaching, and settlements working together. It showed respect for the planet and balance with its creatures. Humanity did not claim dominance. They claimed belonging. When the message was sent, it traveled across known space. Reactions came quickly. Some species responded with fear, calling humanity a threat. Others responded with curiosity, admitting mistakes made long ago. Debate spread through the council chambers. Humanity was no longer a myth. They were real, and they were changed. Captain Rethak received the human message personally. As he watched it, he understood the deeper truth. Humanity was not asking for forgiveness. They were offering understanding. They did not demand return to the core systems. They demanded respect. On the Deathworld, humans waited. They did not rush to build fleets or weapons. They trusted the strength they already had. The planet continued to test them, as it always had. Storms rose. Creatures hunted. Humans adapted, trained, and survived. The galaxy now faced a choice. Continue to fear humanity and risk conflict, or accept that hardship had shaped them into something new. Humanity had stepped out of the shadows, carrying not anger, but confidence. They were no longer exiles. They were a people forged by the hardest world known, ready to take their place among the stars on their own terms. The Deathworld remained quiet on the surface, but the galaxy beyond was restless. News of humanity's survival and power had spread through trade routes, communication networks, and council chambers. Some dismissed it as exaggeration, others whispered fearfully about the species that had mastered a world meant to kill. Ships moved cautiously in nearby systems, scanning, observing, testing limits. Yet none dared approach directly. Humanity had made its presence known, and the warning was clear. On the Deathworld, humans continued their routines as if nothing had changed. Children trained under harsh conditions, learning balance, strength, and awareness. Adults maintained settlements, repaired structures, and studied the world's rhythms. Predators roamed nearby but did not attack. Storms swept through valleys, yet humans moved through them calmly, adapting in real time. Every action was deliberate, designed to survive and learn, not to dominate. The leaders convened again, deep underground in the chamber that had become their council. Discussions focused on the galaxy's response. Reports indicated that fleets and independent explorers were approaching, some out of curiosity, others with intent to challenge. The elders emphasized strategy over aggression. Humanity had survived this long not by fighting recklessly but by understanding, adapting, and respecting the forces around them. Any return to the galaxy would require the same discipline. A young leader raised the question that weighed on all minds. Should humans act now? The answer came from the oldest among them. "We survived when no one expected us to," he said. "We will survive again, but only on our terms. We do not seek war, yet we cannot allow ignorance to threaten what we have built. The galaxy will listen, or it will learn the hard way." Human scouts moved silently across the Deathworld, gathering data on approaching fleets. Their movements were precise and coordinated, using knowledge of terrain, weather, and predator behavior to remain undetected. Observation posts recorded ship movements, weapon power, and communication signals. Humans were preparing not for immediate battle, but for calculated response. Every decision was based on observation, prediction, and adaptation. Meanwhile, the Galactic Council received the human broadcast sent weeks earlier. It included not only their history but evidence of adaptation, resilience, and intelligence. Images of early struggles, of settlements surviving storms, of children and adults mastering the Deathworld, were accompanied by clear words: "We do not seek conflict. We survived exile. We belong. Respect the world we chose, and we will coexist. Ignore it, and you will face what we became." Debate in council chambers was intense. Some species argued for immediate containment, fearing a race that had survived and thrived under impossible conditions. Others advocated caution, recognizing that humanity's strength was a product of discipline and intelligence, not conquest. Council members could not agree on a policy. Meanwhile, humanity remained on the Deathworld, observing, adapting, and preparing for the inevitable responses. The first test came sooner than expected. A fleet of mercenary ships, convinced they could exploit rumors of advanced human technology, attempted to land near the outskirts of human settlements. They underestimated both the planet and the species that had mastered it. As they descended, storms erupted unpredictably, tearing engines apart. Gravity fluctuations dragged ships off course. Sensors overloaded. Predictive navigation failed. The Deathworld itself seemed alive, responding to intruders while leaving humans untouched. From within the storms, humans moved with precision. Small teams directed predators and environmental hazards to slow and confuse the attackers. Traps and terrain were used strategically. The invaders struggled against forces they could not understand, and within hours, their fleet was reduced to scattered wrecks. Those who survived retreated, carrying reports filled with fear and disbelief. The Deathworld had defended its own. After the battle, human communications sent a message across space. We warned you. This world is ours. Respect it, or face what comes naturally. There was no threat of retaliation. There was no boast. Just clarity and certainty. The galaxy had seen proof. Humanity was no longer a species to be underestimated, ignored, or dismissed. In the council chambers, debate continued. Some factions wanted to send diplomats, others wanted to prepare fleets. Every calculation had to consider the Deathworld itself. The planet was a weapon, a protector, and a teacher. Those who approached without understanding would fail. Humanity had turned exile into advantage, weakness into skill, and danger into discipline. Back on the surface, humans prepared quietly. They did not celebrate victories or make grand displays. Training continued, technology was maintained, and knowledge was shared. They understood that power alone was meaningless without understanding. Their strength came not just from adaptation to the Deathworld, but from their ability to predict, respond, and survive under conditions no other species could endure. Captain Rethak observed all this from a safe orbit. He recorded his assessment. Humanity had become a force shaped by the harshest conditions imaginable. The Deathworld had molded them physically, mentally, and strategically. They were no longer exiles. They were masters of survival, rulers of a world that had tested them to the limits, and a species the galaxy could no longer ignore. As the stars stretched across hyperspace beyond the Deathworld, humanity's message was clear. They had survived exile, adapted to a world that should have killed them, and prepared for the galaxy's eventual reckoning. The choice now rested with those who had ignored them for so long. Respect, coexistence, or conflict. The Deathworld would protect its own, and humanity would endure, as it always had, no matter the challenge. The Deathworld remained as it had for centuries, harsh, unpredictable, and unforgiving, yet humanity moved across it with calm precision. Every step, every action, had purpose. Children trained under acid rains, adults repaired settlements, and scouts mapped every fault line and storm path. To any outsider, the world looked chaotic and deadly, but to humans, it was a living guide, a teacher, and a shield. They had learned its rules, respected its dangers, and in return, it had shaped them into something the galaxy had never seen. Captain Rethak watched from orbit as humans continued their routines, understanding now that they had become more than survivors. They were guardians of a world that no other species could master. Storms rose and fell with regularity, creatures patrolled the edges of settlements, yet the humans moved calmly, unafraid and prepared. Every intruder that had approached the planet before had failed, but humanity did not celebrate those failures. They studied them, learned from them, and adapted for the future. The Galactic Council had finally received humanity's message. Images and recordings told the story of exile, struggle, and evolution. The message was clear: we survived what the galaxy expected to destroy. We are here, we have adapted, and we will endure. The galaxy must choose how to respond. Some members of the Council reacted with fear, seeing humanity as a threat that could no longer be ignored. Others reacted with admiration, realizing that they had misjudged a species they once called weak. As fleets began to debate responses, humanity did not rush to action. They did not build massive armadas or strike first. Instead, they trusted the strength of the Deathworld and the discipline they had forged within themselves. Every settlement remained prepared, every individual trained, every strategy refined. They understood that true power was not measured by numbers or technology alone, but by knowledge, adaptation, and unity. Scouts reported the arrival of new fleets moving cautiously toward the planet. Humanity observed them silently, tracking each vessel, predicting every maneuver. The Deathworld responded to intruders naturally. Gravity shifts, storms, and seismic disturbances disrupted their formations. Creatures controlled indirectly by humans moved strategically, diverting threats away from settlements. The aliens in orbit recorded the events with disbelief. No force could challenge humanity without first understanding the rules of the world they had mastered. Human leaders convened underground to discuss the latest developments. They spoke not of revenge, not of conquest, but of readiness. Every action had consequences, every response had purpose. They understood the galaxy was finally paying attention. Humanity had survived exile, adapted to a death world, and now they were ready to return to the stars on their own terms. Their future would not be dictated by fear, underestimation, or prejudice. They would choose their own path. When the first fleet attempted to land, they were met not with human weapons alone, but with the full coordination of the planet itself. Storms erupted unpredictably, gravity fluctuated, and creatures emerged to challenge intruders. Human teams moved with precision, guiding the environment and predators to control the battlefield. Alien forces struggled, overwhelmed by hazards they could not predict. Within hours, their ships were crippled, and survivors retreated, terrified. Humanity had demonstrated that power lay not in aggression but in mastery of one's environment and self. Messages followed the retreating fleets, sent openly across space. We do not seek war. We do not desire conquest. We have survived, we have adapted, and we will endure. Respect what we have built, or face the consequences of ignorance. There was no boast, no threat beyond the truth of their existence. The Death World had defended its own, and humanity had shown that survival and understanding could be stronger than any weapon. Captain Rethak recorded his final observations from orbit. Humanity had transformed from exiles into masters, not of the galaxy, but of themselves and the world that had shaped them. They were disciplined, united, and fearless, forged in conditions that would have destroyed every other species. The Death World had tested them, the galaxy had doubted them, yet they remained. They were no longer simply survivors. They were a force of nature, tempered by adversity and refined by intelligence. As the stars stretched into hyperspace beyond the Death World, humans stood atop ridges, watched the horizon, and trained without pause. They did not seek recognition, but they had earned it. The galaxy had a choice: acknowledge the strength of a species shaped by the harshest conditions imaginable, or underestimate them again and risk the consequences. Humanity had endured, adapted, and prepared. They were no longer exiles, no longer hidden, and no longer to be underestimated. The Death World had claimed them, strengthened them, and revealed them to the stars. Humanity had changed everything, and the galaxy would never be the same.